Boo! Happy Halloween! Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Big hello to all the new subscribers. In my last couple of videos there, I was doing an Archimedes Penta, and when I started doing this engine, I found out it had dual water pump impellers. It had an onboard bilge pump. That's what the second water pump impeller was for. It works off of Venturi. Think of it when you're going real fast in a boat that's got some water in it, and you reach down and pull the boat plug, and out it goes. Well, that second impeller kind of works like that. So, as I researched that system, that Archimedes Penta and everything, and I was thinking, you know, Swedish engineering and everything. Well, it comes out that during my research for that motor, that was not necessarily an uncommon thing back in the day, in the 60s, early 60s. And the Archimedes Penta, I've had a couple subscribers call in and tell me that they believe it's around a 76 in that area, mid 70s. So I got to reading up on the dual water pump systems and the dual impellers and the bilge pump, or siphon as it's called, in some of these motors. And it turns out that older American-made motors had this on them, several of them. And I just happened to have one. I didn't even know I had it until I started. Well, I didn't know it had an onboard siphon or a second water impeller and everything. And I have not took this one apart yet. It is in the state that I received it. And I've had this thing for a few years. I've just never really looked at it. But when I started reaching the dual impeller thing, that kind of caught my, the Archimedes, perked my curiosity on that. And so I'm going to show you it. Again, it's the mystery motor. You guys got to see if you can figure it out. But I'm going to show you enough of it that if you've ever had one or know of them, you'll probably know what it is. This thing is filthy, dirty, dusty. I don't even remember where I got it. Half of it, well, not half of it, a lot of it has been taken apart. The carburetor doesn't have the bowl on it. The float's just hanging there. The needle's missing. But I did a compression check on it, and I'm getting 120 top and bottom, so it would probably run. So I'm going to give you a shot at this, and so it's kind of mystery motor all over again. Let's see if you know what this thing is. Let me give you a look-see at it. All right. There it is. Now, if you watch my spark checker, you'll see that I'm only getting spark. You should be able to see it there. So I'm getting intermittent spark on one cylinder. I've got concerns about it. What's left of the fuel pump is right there. Pretty much most of it's gone. The cool thing about it is I can put pretty much any fuel pump on, because there's the pulse. It's already tapped into the bypass port of the cylinder, so that'll allow me to put just about any fuel pump on it. There's what's left of the original one. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but in there the carburetor bowl was just hanging down there. And one thing that concerns me is those screws on the intake. So somebody's been in there, because those screws are obviously not original. So, what is it? I'm going to show you a little more of it. Alright. There's the lower unit. And you can see that's all yuck. What is it? But, like I said, what got me interested was, if you look, there's the water siphon tube. You can see it right there. You see it's nippled and everything. That's for the second water pump impeller. At least so far what I've read. So she's in real rough shape. Somebody's been in there and replaced all them intake screws. There you can see the carburetor bowl. But I have the bowl. So she's rough. I love those transom clamp handles. Ain't that sweet? Like I said, it's got 120 psi top and bottom. I'll show you a little bit more of it. There's the carburetor bowl and assorted parts. There's the needle. Glad I got that. There's the recoil start. Maybe that'll give it away. So what is it? I'll say this. It is not a Chrysler. I know that color makes you think Chrysler right off the bat. That is not a Chrysler motor. So, I'm going to see if I can get spark enough just to squirt something in that intake and make sure there's reeds and stuff in there. Hey, did you notice the pine cone? Got me some treasures. Pine cone. Never know what you... Oh, another pine cone. All kind of treasures down in there. Who knows? All right. Let me get that flywheel off and let's look under there. Okay. So I was wrong about the dual water pump impellers, but it does have dual water pickup tubes. And so if you look, okay, let me get you over here just a little better. Sorry about that. Alright. Okay. Right there is pickup, water tube pickup number 1. And that goes to the power head. This is water tube pickup number 2. This one just goes up. And I don't know if you can see it, but it makes a bend, curve to the right, and comes out right over there. So that's the siphon or bilge pump or whatever you want to call it. And there's the dual water pickup tubes on this beauty. This motor is dusty, oily, old, but I do believe a freshwater motor. I see no traces of salt on this thing anywhere. Okay, there's the lower unit. Found something interesting. First, oh, this one does have, it might have dual water impellers. Yeah, it does, I think. So I'll have to get that apart. Now that I look at it, it's deep enough in there to have dual impellers. We'll see when I pull it off. But one thing I found was, if you look in there, this water tube, the rubber grommet is collapsed in on itself. I don't know if you can see it. Well, that piece that broke off just fell down in there. So let me get this apart, and we'll see if it's dual impellers or not. I'm not 100% sure. We'll just have to look at it. But again, look how clean that is. There's oil in there and stuff, dust and dirt, but no signs anywhere of salt. And I'll explain that in a little bit. All right, let me get this impeller apart on that lower unit. Be right back. Hopefully you can see this, just how clean that is inside. You can probably even see the water tube bins there. Just obviously never used in salt. Very, very clean. Amazing how dirty and dusty and yucky it is on the outside, but it is clean in the inside. And everything on it's loose and free. Very interesting. Okay, I took out those screws. All 4 of them are the same length. And they're pristine. No salt at all. But when I lifted this up, I'm going to slide it right off. And that is brass. It's heavy. That's a mighty big vent hole in that thing. That's what that is. Well, there's water tube number 1. Okay, and you can see, well, hopefully you can see, that impeller be gone. Now, we'll see if this is a dual water system. Can you see that in there? All right. Okay, so the little hole goes in back. Ooh. I don't think that's supposed to be like that. You can see the shape of that, somewhat of an O-ring thing. Alright, boy, it's clean though. Alright, I don't think that's, I don't know if that's supposed to be like that or not. Look how that's shaped. Well, maybe it is. It must be. It seems to be forged that way. So let me pull that off. Get a pick. See if I can pick that plate up. And look at there. There's impeller number 2. Now, was that lined up? That little divot? Yes, it has a notch there. And shoot, I just dropped it. There, I got it. The pin. It's just a round pin anyway. Okay. Move some things around. So it was that. Okay. And there's the let me get that pin before I forget it. There's the key pin for the top impeller. It's just a little round pin. Alright. Now let me see if I can fork this other one out of here. There it is. There's another pin right there. And here's water pump impeller number 2. Talk about memory set. That's been in there a while. For sure. Excuse me. And there's a slot in there. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a slot for the little round pin. Okay. Beautiful brass cup. That's where water pump impeller number 1 spins. Sends water through the siphon. And oh, let me get that other pin out of there. Get that other pin. Oh, little magnetism. And there's pin number 2. All right. Okay. So, really like the brass on that. So, it's a mystery. So, there are the parts and pieces. There's your top impeller, which was completely destroyed. There's your top chamber, really in good shape. The plate, then the weird shape O-ring, and the plate that this impeller set on. So dual impellers. Now this engine, I will tell you, is American made, but I tell you it had some parts very reminiscent of the Archimedes. And what those are, or when I took it apart, Allen head bolts held the lower unit on, just like on that Penta. So now I got to research and find out myself if there's a connection between these two. Both have a similar a little bit of construction that's very similar. But everything on this one says made in the US of A. So that's the bolts that held the lower on. Look how clean that is inside. That engine was dirty, yucky. And now I remember the story of this thing. All right. All right, I remember it now, how I got this motor. A gentleman that used to live up here, he no longer lives up here. He came up here from Minnesota. He had this engine and an old Johnson. And I want to say the Johnson was like a 5.5. I still have it. And that's kind of exciting to me, because once I started researching these dual impeller motors, that's how I remembered this thing. And then, so now I'm hoping that other motor I got, the 5.5 Johnson, is also a freshwater motor. But I'll give you one more shot of the inside of this exhaust chamber on this thing. Very clean. And I took those screws that held the impeller water pump housing together, and they just, I mean, right out. Just something I'm not used to. So I remember now he moved up here. He had brought a pull-behind trailer with all his stuff in it, and he lived up here for many years. And then his mother got ill, and he went back to Minnesota. Well, he couldn't take all his stuff with him, so he brought a bunch of it, including my Lark 40 that I have, and brought it over to me, and I gave him some small amount of money. It wasn't a lot for the load of them. He had some parts and other things, but he had this in there. And so looking at it, I can tell it wasn't running when it came up here, and it never hit the salt water. So this makes it a candidate for me for refurbing. And just the uniqueness of it, and I would probably do that anyway, but I also have to come up with some parts. The carburetor is not complete. I found a little jet in there, and I can find no place for it to go. So what that means, I don't know. But I'll look at some of my older manuals and everything and see if I can find some schematics online and different things for this motor. But there it is. So so what do you think it is? Hopefully I showed you enough. Again, it's one of these, if somebody's familiar with it, they probably know what it is. But all new to me, so is made in America. So again, everybody have a fun and safe Halloween. Thanks for watching. One other quick note about this little kicker with the twin impellers. It's not a 12, 13, 14, or 15 horse, but it does fall within those horsepower ranges. It's not a 12, 13, 14, or 15, but it does fall within those horsepower ranges. What is it?